This was the last thing I expected to see while making this video. Hey folks, we are back with another video, and today we will be doing a brake service on a Shimano XTR M9100 brake system. So I had recently posted a video on a SRAM brake bleed. I bled Guide Ultimates, and in the video I sort of explained why I think that a SRAM has the better method for bleeding a brake system than Shimano does. In my opinion, Shimano's brake bleed method is very outdated, okay? So Shimano states that, okay, we have one syringe, we take the syringe, we fill it up and we plug it into the caliper. And then we push everything up, out into a reservoir on the lever, all right? Now, to me, that doesn't make sense anymore. In reality, it never did make sense. Why? Because brake fluid, whether mineral oil or dot fluid, will get contaminated over time, right? Mineral oil especially, I mean, that stuff could turn unbelievably black, right, over time. So 90% of that contamination happens down here at the caliper. Why would I want to take all that contamination, bring it up through the system and out through the lever? I don't want to introduce it into the lever, basically, right? To me, it makes a lot more sense, like SRAM states, where we start at the lever and put fresh oil and pull out all the oil and have the fresh oil replace it at the caliper, essentially, right? For the end. So I absolutely agree with that. And I would add on top of that method that when it comes to bleeding the brake, to removing air from the oil, that you are better off at that point starting at the caliper and moving your way up, right? Why? Air will always want to rise on top of fluid. Fluid's going to be always heavier than air, right? So why not work with that? Which brings me to the point of gravity bleeding. I've done gravity bleeding in the past, and I can honestly say that I just don't understand the point of it, right? Why? If we had a funnel and just a simple hose that was straight and empty at the other side, yeah, sure, fill up the funnel with oil, you can put bubbles in there and the bubbles will eventually make it out with the oil. But this is a more complex system. There's a lot of pockets inside a reservoir, a lot of pockets within a caliper where bubbles can get stuck, okay? Now, I put out a video where I completely dismantled a caliper, and you can see exactly how small the holes are to go from one pot to the other one, how much area there is in there for a bubble to get caught, right? So with a gravity bleed, no matter what, you are gonna have to remove, if you wanna make sure that you're doing a decent job, you're gonna have to remove the caliper and rotate it side to side, bang on it in order to break any larger bubbles into smaller bubbles in order to get it from one pot to the other pot, because the hole that connects these two is so small. And if the bubble's big enough, fluid will go around the bubble whether you like it or not. You can only get it done if you break those bubbles down enough, okay? And to me, that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Because the best way to bleed a system is with pressure and vacuum. That's where this guy comes into play. With a syringe, we have full control over pressure and vacuum. Why is that important? Because only with a syringe could I ensure that I am truly done with bleeding the system, okay? You could do it with gravity bleeds, sure, but ultimately you have no way of making sure that you have completely removed all the air. If there's an air bubble trapped in this pot, you don't know if you have truly taken it out and brought it to the other side. Even if you think you have, because you don't see any oil coming out, right? With a syringe, I could agitate the system to a point where that bubble will move, whether it likes it or not. It's either gonna come all the way out the bottom or it's gonna come all the way out the top, right? That's why both Shimano, SRAM, and all these guys want you using syringes in order to be able to bleed a system effectively and efficiently. That's what this is about, and that's what we're gonna go over in this video. Essentially, we are gonna do a SRAM bleed method on a Shimano brake system But again, when I personally end them, I always end them from the bottom up. All right. So next up, let's go into the tools needed for the job. We're going to have to move the handles, the lever from the handlebar on the handlebar. So we're going to need some kind of highlighter or paint marker in order to be able to mark the handlebar to the lever. So this way you can put it exactly where it was when you're done with the job, right? Tire lever, in order to put pistons back in, there's going to be a portion of the job where we're going to want to clean the pistons real well, and you're going to have to bring them out, and then you're going to have to put them back in. That's where this guy comes in handy. Bleed block, right? So you're going to need one for your particular, well, I mean, this is a Shimano one, but there's different types of Shimano ones. For instance, the 9100 doesn't work with the M9000. They're different sizes basically, right? So we are going to need a 2.5 millimeter Allen that is for the bleed bolt, and a 4 millimeter Allen that is for the lever in order to move it back and forth. Well, I'm using a magnetic bit, which sort of comes in handy to put back the, you don't need this, but comes in handy to put the bleed screw back in, right? 7 millimeter wrench in order to loosen and tighten the bleed bolt at the caliper. We're going to need some kind of container, so we need a bleed kit basically of some sort. Now, I have multiple bleed kits using the part of the Park bleed kit basically. You don't need to get the Park tool ones. Personally, I say don't get it. You know, the only part of the Park tool kit that is awesome is this guy here. And I don't know if they sell it separately, but if they don't, and Park Tools happens to hear this, sell this separately. This thing is so handy for all bleed jobs, right? It basically holds the syringe. It's great. I love it personally. So you need a syringe. You need a reservoir to put onto the lever. We're going to need some kind of extra hose with a plastic bag. I forgot a plastic bag, like a Ziploc. Tape it to the Ziploc. This is just to finalize the bleed basically at the caliper side. You're going to need alcohol and paper towels if there is. Oh, I'm going to need, because it's Shimano, flathead screwdriver in order to take out the bolt that holds the disc pads, the brake pads in. So that's it. Yeah. And you're going to need brake fluid. So you need Shimano brake fluid basically, or any kind of mineral oil that you feel most comfortable with. I just happen to use Shimano. Gotta go get that. So that's pretty much it. All right, on to the job. So I'm only going to be doing the front brake in this video. Everything that I do though applies to the rear brake, right? The only thing with the rear brake is that you need to ensure that the lever is the highest point. So you might have to incline the front end of your bike from the rear end to make sure that the caliper is at the bottom and the lever is at the top, okay? The reason I'm only doing the front, I want to keep the video short, and also it's a lot easier managing the camera up and down a short distance as opposed to back and forth in a long distance, right, to get more close-up shots. So let's get started with the caliper. So first things first, we are going to remove the pads. Now, there's a bolt for these XTRs, right? In fact, pretty much all brakes. Typically, XTRs have retaining clips, but my buddy must have worked on his brakes last year and removed the retaining clips for both front and back because both calipers don't have the retaining clips. So there's supposed to be little retaining clips. Make sure you pop them off. Do not lose them and reuse them. All they do is help ensure that if this bolt somehow rattles loose, it doesn't completely fall off, right? So I don't have it. Not in both, so I'm just going to have to grab my flathead and unscrew this bolt. And I hate the fact that these are flatheads. Why can't they come up with a standard for screws? Here we want world peace and nobody can figure out standard screw types. So next I'm going to take out the brake pads. Okay, let me see, put my camera so you can see them. Basically grab them, pull them out. Now for brake pads, you're just looking to see how much material you have sticking out from this spring in particular, basically, right? So he must have changed them, I'm guessing, close to the end of last year sometime, because he has a lot of life left. These are basic. These look like they're brand new. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to put them on the side, and then I'm going to take off the bleed cover. It's so stiff. What's going on here? There we go, right? Be careful, don't tear it. and just pull it out and put it on the side. Okay. Next, we're going to work on the pistons. Before we do a bleed, we absolutely need to make sure that both pistons within the caliper come out equally when pressing the lever, okay? Just because you do a bleed does not mean that you will get equal travel between your pistons. What happens is these piston walls collect dirt, and there's a very small tolerance between the piston and the seal inside and the caliper wall. In fact, I have a video that I did last year at some time where I open up the calipers and it shows you exactly the tolerances. They're extremely tight, right? So it does not take that much dirt buildup. And don't forget that we get mineral buildup from water in the trail or washing the bikes that gets stuck in here, whether it's calcium, whether it's whatever different minerals that in the water that dry up. Basically, they will fall into this little area over here and basically slow the piston down, or if not, stop it in its tracks, right? So the only way to test to see is as your pads are out, we grab the lever and we just lightly press it. And we're looking to see travel distance. Hopefully you can see that in the camera well. Let me reposition the camera. We're looking for distance traveled, okay? So basically I'm pressing in the lever, and this one actually looks pretty good. In other words, the left and right pistons are coming out with relatively good pressure, actually pretty equally. The left one seems to be coming out a little bit more. They're never going to be perfectly even, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them. I'm going to test it again. Where's my tire lever? Okay, here's my tire lever. I'm going to take them back. I'm going to push them back in again. Okay, so that's one, and that's two. So you could use a brake pad tool or a tire lever. I figure more people have tire levers, so I might as well just test it with a tire lever, plastic preferred, right? So I push them in all the way, okay, 1 and 2, and then I'm gonna try that again, okay? So press in once, yep. So right now they're coming out, in my opinion, they're coming out fairly equal, okay? So now I'm gonna let them stick out about 2 millimeters, okay? You don't wanna bring them out all the way. And then I'm gonna leave them there. And ultimately what I wanna do now, spray alcohol in there, take a brush, and clean those sidewalls, those exposed sidewalls, these guys here, as best you can, right? Whole idea is to alleviate any kind of dirt or any kind of anything that would build up on those sidewalls. Brush them out, make them as clean as possible, so this way pistons will come in and out as easily as possible, making it easier to center your brake pads with your disc onto your caliper, basically, because that is a thing. So what we want to do is grab a brush, a nice stiff brush. These little brushes are nice and stiff, and basically clean it as good as we can, right? I'm going to take a little bit more alcohol. Having a good set of brushes like this comes in real handy. And they're cheap. Just make sure they're stiff. They got stiff bristles on them. All right, so take the alcohol one more time. Then I'm going to take a paper towel. We're going to put it in there. Come on, squeeze it down. Then we're going to try and bring it back and forth, just like that, all the way around. Okay. And we should be good. Okay, now I'm going to take the pistons, put them back in, give them one more shot. 1 and 2, all the way in. Okay, now let's press the lever again. There you go. Not bad, definitely looking better. Now we're going to take our tire lever again. We're going to push the pistons all the way in. Okay. They go smoothly in, real easy. It should take very little pressure to put pistons in. If you find that they are not going in with the slightest amount of pressure, then essentially they're not sitting right, plain and simple. They're on a bit of an angle. Again, look at that video that I have and you'll see that the slightest deviation, and it's next to impossible in some cases to get the piston actually inside, right? Depending on how off it really is. So we are going to take our bleed block now. If you have a kit, a service kit, it had to have come with a bleed block. we're going to take the bleed block, we're going to put it in, right? And then we're going to pass our screw through the hole and just secure the bleed block in to make sure it doesn't fall out. Okay. Now we're going to take our lever, press it until it can't press no more. Done. Next, what we are going to do to make our lives easier is mark the position that the lever is actually in, because we're going to have to pick up the lever, rotate it basically, and this isn't my bike, this is my buddy's bike, so I want to make sure when I'm all done with the bleed, I put the lever exactly back exactly where it came from, right? And what I'm going to do is take a little marker over here and basically just make a line from top to bottom. Okay? And that'll point me in the right direction when I am done. The next step would be to measure the handle distance from the lever distance from the handle in order to put it back to the position it was originally in. Now, right off the bat, I happen to notice that this guy here is way longer than I think I've ever seen a handle before. Looking into it, I happen to notice that on the inside of his front brake lever, let's see if we get a good shot of it. So right there, if you can see it, see these two washers? They should not be sticking out. They should be on the inside, basically. This whole axle is completely exposed. So it's not keeping in the lever. So I could sit here and tighten the bolt and the lever basically still won't move. So that's broken. That needs to get fixed without a doubt. Very unexpected. All right, let me think about this and see what I'll do. So I took the lever off for closer inspection and check this one out. It's a first for me. Over here is a retaining clip. If you can see that, hopefully. There you go. I got to figure out a way to put this thing back into its seat inside there. It completely popped out somehow. My guess is maybe he wiped out. I'm not 100% sure. So that's really odd. Let me see if I can get this back in here. I tried my retaining clip pliers. Problem is I can't. Oops, did I just fluke it off? I did. No way. No way. Yeah. Hey, don't pop them out. Yep, he is in there. Sweet. We fixed his brake. Sort of changes my whole bleed over here. But we fixed the lever. That'll save him about 100-something bucks. I don't know if it's under warranty. Got to call him on that one. But this was completely unexpected. But yeah, it's in there. Yep. There we go. That's making a lot more sense. Cool. I'm happy about that. Okay, so we had a bit of an unexpected turn over there, but we managed to fix it. Let me get the camera centered. So I put the lever back, I fixed the inside, the lever blade basically. So I put the lever back onto the handlebar. Now this guy was exposed, right? I cleaned the inside here, put this guy in all the way, and there's a bit of a trick over here. When installing the thread, make sure it's all clean. Okay. Grab the hose and put pressure with the hose inward as you're screwing this guy in. Okay, so grab your teeth. Make sure the teeth grab over here first, right? And then always make sure you got some kind of pressure going in so he seats right. So just like that, screw him in. Okay, then when you can't do it by hand, we grab a, what is a 7, I think, right? 6 or a 7, I forget, 7, that's what I thought. So we grab a 7 and we screw this guy in. Where is it? Oh man, it's not a 7, it's an 8, this one. Hold on. Sorry about that. It's an 8, and I'm glad that got fixed. Right, then we screw this guy in, and screw him in until he's nice and tight. Okay, Don't over screw them in. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bolt and put it flush. You could go deeper, but you don't need to go that far. I'm going to put it flush, which is going to extend out the lever. Okay, so now we have more room because it's bringing the piston further in this way, right? So now we have more room in the system to do an actual bleed. Okay, so now let's prep. I'm going to start by prepping the top first, and then we will prep the bottom. We want to make sure that our bleed screw is at the highest point, right? And that goes for both front and rear brakes. So now I'm going to take out the bleed screw. And one thing to notice when you take out the bleed screw is there is a washer inside. Sometimes he will come out with the screw. This time he didn't come out with the screw, right? So we want to remove this washer and be careful with it. You do not want to damage it, all right? So remove the washer, and when you remove it, put it back onto the screw for safekeeping, okay? Because the reservoir comes with its own washer. All right, just like that. Ta-da! Now we're going to take our reservoir, okay, which has a washer, and we're going to put them in. We're going to install them. Okay. All right. What I did next is I filled up the reservoir with oil, right? I had to empty out the lever because I had to open it up and basically fix a problem, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fill up as much fluid as possible in here, okay? There's a reason for that. So I'm going to take out the plug, right? And then I'm just going to keep on pressing the handle until we don't see any more bubbles coming out. Notice an XTR reservoir is real small, which makes it a little bit easier for me.
6 hours later.
Okay. So as can be seen, I barely get, there's no air coming out basically. Am I saying there's absolutely no air stuck in here somewhere? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that considering I had to empty this out, I filled it up with a significant amount of oil basically, right? Took a while, but we're good. So now it's almost close to the beginning of a traditional, typical bleed process, okay? So next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill the reservoir up with a little bit more oil. Okay. Then I'm gonna plug it for now. Now we will prep the bottom. Okay, so next I'm gonna prep the syringe. Again, I'm doing a syringe bleed here. No need to do a gravity bleed. So first thing we're gonna do is take out the air from the syringe. Barely got any oil, it should empty out the canister here. We don't need to put a lot of oil in here. In fact, we're putting just a little bit of oil. Okay. Take out the air. All right. Now, force the air out. Fill up whatever you got with oil. Okay. Now we're going to put this onto the caliper. You want to make sure you are empty as possible over here. We're at the caliper side. Now I have this little holder here from Park Tool that came with a Park Tools kit, and that's the only thing I like about that kit. The syringe is okay. But the holder over here, it is awesome. I don't know if they sell it separately. If they do, go buy one. Do yourself a favor. The thing is super, super handy. It's about time somebody came out with something like that. Okay, so now we installed the syringe onto the caliper and take out the air, get it on top, leave it there for now, right? So then I'm gonna take a 7mm, I'm gonna open up the port about, oh great, half a turn. That came from the reservoir, my bad. Half a turn, okay? If you notice, we got dark fluid coming in already, okay? Now let me show you a bigger picture as far as what's going on over here. So we have the reservoir filled. We have the syringe empty. This sort of goes against what Shimano says. Shimano system, in my opinion, doesn't make sense unless you're like me and you bleed, you regularly maintain your brake fluids. And when I change them, they pretty much come out the same color, right? Now, I'm fairly confident this bike probably doesn't get a brake bleed that often. So bikes that don't get brake bleeds often, most of the discoloration, if not all the discoloration, is going to happen at the caliper side. So I don't really agree with Shimano's premise that start with a full syringe and push through upwards. I get it from a bleed perspective for removing air, but I don't think it makes sense when doing a bleed on a system that hasn't been bled in a long time and had a lot of use on it, because you will force all the crap that's collected down in the caliper area into the entire brake system, including the bladder. Whereas if I start this way and I empty out the bladder into the syringe by forcing it up, I'm doing two things. One, I'm replacing all the dirty oil inside the system into the syringe. Two, I'm forcing any air to come out with it off my first shot. Okay? A gravity bleed is nothing more than filling up the reservoir and using only a hose into a bag and letting gravity push or flow all the liquid down, since it's going to want to do its thing. The problem is air is always going to want to go up. And trapped air, if it's in a tight spot, is not going to want to budge. Fluid will go around it. And there's no way with gravity to force. So why would I want to do a gravity bleed when I have a syringe that would do the exact same thing, but with force? Okay? I could pressurize the air to come out by pressurizing the system and depressurizing the system, okay? So essentially what we're doing over here is a SRAM recommended bleed. I wish Shimano had a SRAM 2 syringe system, because personally, I think it's especially with the bleeding edge, it's super. It's the best way to ensure that you can remove all air possible. A gravity bleed way does not ensure that you could remove bubbles from tight spots, essentially, right? So what I do now is take out the plug, just like that, okay? Now, obviously, gravity's not gonna force it down, right? But I don't need gravity to force it down because I have a syringe over here, and I'm gonna pull it out with force, okay, with pressure. So let me put the camera closer here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I'll be back. Okay, so as we saw before, the reservoir is now open. So instead of having gravity take fluid down without knowing if it's going to be able to take the air down, now I'm just going to take the syringe and force all that crap up until that reservoir is empty above. Look at how dark all that crap is, okay? So you want to grab all that, and you'll see by the time I get halfway, especially with a front brake, boom, now we got clean liquid coming in. It's already clean, okay? Done. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this guy up. I'm not done with the bleed, okay? Now I'm going to take out the syringe. Okay, and I'm gonna empty out all this oil, all this crappy oil. I'm gonna empty it out, and then I'm gonna fill up the whole syringe and put it through the system in order to ensure that I get all the bubbles out of here, but more importantly, get all the bubbles out of the lever above as well, okay, and the bladder above. All right, I will be back after I empty this out and fill them up again. So I'm back. I emptied out all the dirty oil. I put in all fresh oil. I know that the entire system right now is filled up with fresh oil. Now I'm going to go in for the actual bleed. Okay, all I did was replace oil before, so because it was all nasty, right? So now I'm going to open this back up. Again, not by much. Make sure we don't shake this too much. All right. Like I said, all it takes about 1/8 of a turn, really. Okay. Suck it up first to make sure you don't get any oil or any bubbles in here, which actually I'm good. I don't have any bubbles in there. That's pretty good. So again, we had started with a filled reservoir and an empty syringe, and we emptied out all the dirty oil into the syringe, okay? And then I removed the dirty oil from the syringe, filled it with clean oil, and then slowly we are going to bleed out the system now to get all the air, force all the air with the syringe out of the oil. Out of the air, out of the oil, right? So now I'm just gonna press down on the syringe. As we see, the reservoir is going to fill up. Okay. And I see nothing. Now, again, with the gravity bleed, I can't do this. I'm going to suck back up. Nobody says I have to stop. If I suck back up, I'm agitating the system, right? And depending on how hard I suck up, the harder I pull up, the more it agitates the system. And that will get air bubbles moving, trapped air bubbles moving, basically, right? But I'm looking at this right now, and I can honestly say that this probably bled. Now, the only thing I recommend is don't pull up too fast with the Shimano system, because believe it or not, it will grab air from the outside of the tube, right? So you don't want to pull up too hard with the Shimano system, unlike SRAM with a bleeding edge, which is real sweet. Shimano really needs to come up with a bleeding edge type solution. It's so much nicer, so much cleaner. So, yeah, I'm good. Like I said, I could force down hard. If I force down hard like I just did, then I know that I'm putting pressure inside the system, right? Now I'm pulling up reasonably hard. And again, I am not seeing a thing come out. Nothing. We are bled. This thing's good to go. I'm just going to force it down hard one more time, or just force it down one more time. And now I'm going to close the system up. Done. Now we're going to take a rubber band. We're going to put it around the handle, just like that. And we're going to leave it there. Now let's finish up the bottom. Next, we're going to take the syringe. We lock the system. This thing's shut tight, right? Take out the needle. Put it on, the syringe. Put it on the side. We don't need them anymore. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to take a hose in a plastic. I just put it in a plastic bag. You can put it in a cup, whatever you want. I put tape on a plastic bag to make my life easier, right? Just so it won't make too much of a mess. I need a longer hose for this. I don't know where the longer one is, actually. So basically what I'm going to do now, we have the rubber band on the lever. And I'm just going to open this guy up 3 times. Open, close, open, close, open, close. So one little bubble there, guys. That was it. And our rubber band basically forced the lever close, okay? So that part of our bleed is done. Now we're just gonna ensure that the lever is fully bled as well. I'm gonna take this off and we're good to go. Now all we're gonna do is move the lever around, different positions. I'm in an odd position here, guys, for real. And I see no bubbles. This guy is done. I'm gonna just bring him straight for now. I'm gonna plug back in. Now we are going to remove them. All right, I will be back. Next, we're going to take our syringe. We're going to make sure he's topped off just by putting a bubble in there. There we go. And we're going to grab our screw. And we are done. Fully bled. This guy's nice and tight, really hard. We are good to go. Okay, now we're going to finish this up. So I had marked my lever. I'm going to put the marks right next to each other. And I know that's where he liked it. Okay. Tighten that guy down. I will get him with the torque wrench later. So now I got to bring this guy in to, where's the small one? It's got to be one. It's got to be the small one. to the same distance as the other one. Okay, that looks relatively close to right. Let's measure that. Yep. Actually, I'm technically 2 millimeters off. So, there we go. Cool. Now we're going to put on our pads. Actually, you know what? Give them a good spray down. Especially this guy, because I had to open them up. All right. And the lever is completely done. So now we are going to remove our bleed block. Pop this guy out. Done. Spray them down with alcohol. Do not want any of this oil ever getting on your pads. If it does, well, you could try and clean them with brake fluid or brake cleaner, or just toss them out, get new pads, oil on pads. Eesh. There's a lot of micro holes inside a pad that are very hard to get anything out of. Okay, so then with clean hands, we're going to put back in our brake pads. All right. And one. What did I do with the screwdriver? Hey, what did I do with the screwdriver? Oh, for crying out loud. Screwdriver, screw this guy in. Now, as I mentioned before, Shimano's typically have retaining clips, cotter pin, well, more retaining clips on the end over here. My buddy obviously didn't put them in when he last serviced his brakes, which was, I don't know when. All right, actually, he doesn't even know that I'm doing this. So next, put in the bleed cap. So flat part, spread it open like this. Make sure that the round part's on the bottom, and then put the opposite side in first. And then, and then put it in the top. And we are done. So again, I'm not saying, guys, that gravity bleed is stupid. I'm saying is that it's just not necessary, and ultimately it is not better than a syringe bleed in order to make sure that you could force air out of tight spots within the caliper and up in the lever. That's all I'm saying. So I know I'm going to probably have pissed off a few people out there, but plain and simple, there's a reason why both SRAM and Shimano recommend syringes, because it's the syringe that'll force air out of a pocket, right? Gravity, just, you can't guarantee it'll do that no matter how much you hit it. I mean, you're gonna have to sit there for a while in order to do it. Again, with the syringe, you could bleed a system real quick. SRAMs with that bleeding edge, to me, is the best. You could bleed a system literally in less than 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and you know you are fully bled, nice and clean, easy in and out, basically, right? I think Shimano needs to update this basically with a bleeding edge type solution, just to make it easier to basically force in and out, knowing that you got a really good connection and you could really force, you know, air through 2 syringes, basically, right? So anyway, hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully this helps some people out there. I got a little bit of a bonus over there fixing the lever. Well, it turns out I didn't fully fix the problem I had discovered, right? So in the beginning, when I was doing the bleed, I noticed that the lever was off and couldn't figure out why. And then I realized that the retaining ring on the inside had popped out. So I managed to get it back in there, did the bleed, finished everything. Everything looked like it worked fine, no issues whatsoever. And the next morning I noticed that there was definitely a small oil leak coming from the inside of the lever over here, right? So I'm not entirely sure what the issue is. So what we're going to be doing is tearing this thing apart completely, to try and find out what the problem is in there. All right. As far as tools, I know some of the tools we're going to need, but we'll figure out the rest of them. At a minimum, you're going to need a snap ring plier. I know we're going to need a pick for sure. And we're definitely going to need at least one, if not two different Allen keys, right? A 2mm, I'm positive, but I'm not sure if we're going to need any other ones outside of that, right? So yeah, let's get into tearing apart this lever. So for starters, we're going to need a pick to open up a Shimano lever or change one of these levers. There is underneath the lever on this side over here, on the inside of the lever, I should say, there is a little rubber cap, and we need to take out that rubber cap. Do not lose that cap, because it covers an Allen bolt. That Allen bolt creates friction on this pin that holds it in place so it doesn't slide out, right? And that is, I'm sure it's a 2mm. Yep. So just loosen it. You don't have to take the whole thing out, right? You could take it out if you want, but shouldn't have to. So then, if you notice, there's a dimple part and a flat part. We push on the flat part, and out comes the pin that holds the lever, right? So now we can't fully pull out the lever because it is still attached to the piston over here. Well, the axle that pushes onto the piston, right? So if we want to remove the whole thing one shot, right, what we're going to need to do is grab the snap ring plier, go inside here, and open up the snap ring. Now, if you notice in here is a snap ring. There's two eyelets, basically. Be easier if you could move the eyelets towards the middle with a pick. A little bit more. There we go, just like that, right? You can see that. And then we go in here and we remove it. Now we could remove our whole handle. Right, and we could take this apart too. Right now I won't do that. So basically we've just, so there's our piston. I could see a problem right off the bat. Wow, how did that happen? He must have wiped out. So if you notice, so basically this axle over here, this ball, sits inside essentially a seat. But that seat is supposed to be covered all the way around. Half of it, literally just about half of it, is cracked off. This is the seal that stops the oil from coming out. So, well, there's two seals, one over here and one over here. So my guess is, because this is cracked off, oil is just slowly seeping around the seal because there's no pressure on the seal to keep it fully against the wall. Wow, okay, so now we know the problem. That has to be the problem. Okay, now the big problem is solving the problem. Because Shimano, in all their glory, from what I know, they don't really sell parts for brakes. I know you can't get caliper pistons for them. I tried aftermarkets in a different video that didn't pan out at all. I don't know if they make an aftermarket piston for a lever. Wow, that sucks. So I'm going to have to look into that. Interesting. Well, guys, we figured out the problem. I obviously have to see if this is solvable or if he's going to need a new lever. And knowing Shimano, I'm telling you, I'm fairly confident that they don't sell these parts, these little parts. I would not be surprised if I can't find a replacement piston. Or, yeah, a replacement piston, basically. Well, that sucks. Okay, I'm going to have to look into it, and I will definitely get back with an answer if I could figure something out over here, right, as far as how to solve the problem. As far as the rest of the mechanism, taking it out, if you guys are interested, it's not all that hard, basically. So let's say you needed to change your your lever because you broke it basically. So we just took it out. Now we have to disconnect this axle, this pin in here. We have to remove it in order to be able to remove the entire mechanism, so, or the entire handle, right? Now, if memory serves me correct, this guy here was somewhat stripped, so this actually might be a little bit of a challenge for me. My guess is he got into a little bit of a wipeout, and he tried fixing it, and he stripped this thing while trying to fix it. Okay, I got some purchase here. So basically, I got to go the other way. So basically what we do, I should probably stop the camera. I'll let it cool off. We take this guy out. Nearly there. At least I should be nearly there. All right. Yeah. No way, not there. So basically, we're going to screw this guy. He should come out. There we go. So there's our little axle, if you want to call it, or washer, right? And then over here, we push this pin out, and the whole thing comes out. And that's our entire assembly, right? You could also take this out if you wanted to. Here, just in case you ever get into bladder problems. In case you ever have a bladder problem, there's a bladder in here, although I think, yep, he's a 2.5, right? So we take this guy out, and then what you have to do is there's a screw in there, okay? So technically, don't have to take this one out, but you'll see why I took them out. There's a screw in here, and that should still be a 2mm, yep. So we go in here, if you can see that well, unscrew this guy, okay, and then we wedge this guy out. Slowly but surely, he will wedge out. Two ways to do it. You could either go in here, just don't do it with a pick like this, or you do it from the outside, just slowly but surely, just sort of push him out from all sides, and he'll evenly come out, right? Better off doing this with a screwdriver, but there you go. And that is our bladder, right? So that literally is pretty much the entire lever disassembled, okay? I don't know if that helps you, but I figure since I went that far, but this is concerning. So I need to look into whether I could find a replacement piston for this guy. All right, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like the video, please thumbs up. If you dislike the video, please 2 thumbs down. Subscribe, hit the bell, ding, 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 if you want to get notified on more videos coming, which will be coming. All right, I got many more videos to plan. I'm wondering if I could take care of this. So hope all's well with everybody, and we will be seeing you soon. Have a great day.